Hello, my name is Dr. Justin Harmon. I'd like to take this time to formally welcome you to my Philosophy of Art class, Philosophy 211, at Southern Oregon University, what is certainly going to be a very strange spring quarter. So the purpose of this video is to provide a preliminary description of what philosophy of art is, also known as aesthetics, and to give you some more or less clear sense of what we'll be up to over the course of the next 10 weeks. So what exactly is philosophy of art? We're going to give an overview of that today in this short video and also walk you through some of the most famous and influential contributions to aesthetic theory. Well, we can start in our examination of what philosophy of art is in a via negativa, that is by way of contrast with significantly different, but in any case related fields or institutions such as art history and art criticism. Now we can define art history as a study of art objects in their historical evolution in various stylistic contexts, such as technique, genre, medium, and so forth. And art criticism, on the other hand, can be defined as the evaluative discussion and interpretation of principally works of visual art. Now, obviously, both art history and art criticism presuppose that this thing we call art exists, and we have some understanding of what it is. We know what art is in order to perform a criticism of it or a history of it. We don't take that for granted in the philosophy of art. We don't exactly know what it is. That's what we're inquiring into. And also, both art history and art criticism rely on the articulation of concepts from aesthetics and the philosophy of art. So how does it differ? Well, we can say then that philosophy of art poses a particular kind of question, such as how does art, as a more or less unified set of human objects and practices, stand in relation to broader history as such, consisting of other domains of human spirit, such as the natural sciences, law, and religion. So to that end, I'll briefly read from the introduction to our primary textbook for the quarter. So we have two books we'll be working with. This is Philosophies of Art and Beauty, edited by Hofstadter and Kuhn. That's our primary textbook, and it's supplemented by the Guerrilla Girls Bedside Companion to the History of Western Art. And we'll be drawing on this text at different points throughout the term in order to provide us with concrete examples of art and also to give a voice to some marginalized perspectives within its history. But to read briefly from Hofstadter's introduction, and this is on the first page of that introduction: beyond our natural desire to understand the human activity of the making and enjoyment of art, there is a profound motive and primitive need behind philosophies of art. A powerful analogy immediately comes to men, and forgive the sexism here. This introduction was written, I think, in the 60s. But a powerful analogy immediately comes to humans when they think about themselves and the universe they inhabit. The maker of the universe, so God, and the object he makes are like the human maker and his artifact. The order and harmony of the cosmos are like the beauty of art. Somehow, man participates in the ordering of the universe in his power to make and to respond to art objects. Thus, early philosophies of art and beauty are intermixed with cosmological inquiries, and it is only relatively late in the development of philosophy that the philosophy of art can be thought of as distinct from ontology and theology. Ontology being the study of existence, of being, so a branch of metaphysics, which is an investigation into the fundamental nature of reality. So to conclude this paragraph, the greatest philosophies of art then are part of broader inquiries into man and nature. And so these broader inquiries into man and nature will put us in a kind of profound confrontation with concepts such as beauty, nature itself, truth. Now, the word aesthetics, which is often taken to be synonymous to philosophy of art, derives from the Greek word aesthesis, which means, excuse me, sense perception. And so using that, we can call it aesthetics or philosophy of art as the science or logic of sense. Now, Aristotle, millennia ago, in his famous work, De Anima, or On the Soul, argues that sense perception really has its own logic that's independent of but parallel to that of reason or the intellect. So sense deals with concrete sensuous particulars rather than with abstract universals. So think of the difference between, say, a botanist and a landscape painter in terms of the content of their work. A botanist scientifically investigates the nature of, say, plant being in general. So the universal under which this or that particular plant would be rendered intelligible. Whereas a landscape painter, in taking his or her easel and set of materials out to a beautiful locale and the natural environment, wants to manifest in beauty this particular tree, that particular landscape organization, not these universals. And in that sense, the aesthetic has been connected in terms of language and syntax and meaning beyond that to the indexical, to indexicality. So artworks are kind of pointers. They point to specific manifestations of meaning opened up to us through our various sense modalities. So an indexical word like that or this, it's simply that book, this book I'm holding, not bookness in general. And art can get at that in a way that science as a sort of intellectual endeavor tends to fall short. So the word aesthetics was coined really in the 18th century by the philosopher Baumgarten, who was influenced by various medieval thinkers as well as the ancient Greeks. And he coined this term aesthetics as the name of the field that expresses this logic of sense, also connecting it to the notion of taste. And taste, artistic taste, can be good or bad. So to turn to some other important aesthetic concepts, beauty. So beauty, truth, nature, I think we're going to be grappling systematically in a sustained way with these concepts throughout the 10 weeks of the class. So what is this connection of art to beauty? Well, if we understand the proper object of, say, the natural sciences, or of science in general to be truth. So what is science committed to uncovering or establishing, discovering, representing, however you want to put it? Well, truth. And it's in our relationship to a truth that we have knowledge. Well, if truth is the proper object of science, well, it's usually presented that beauty is comparatively or analogously the proper object of art. But this is a question various philosophers will pose and examine. Are truth and beauty fundamentally different? Hegel, whom we'll be turning to, so G.W.F. Hegel, famous 19th century German thinker, we'll be turning to him in, I believe, week 7. But Hegel and other philosophers articulate this idea in different ways, thought that Hegel thought that beauty is truth made vivid. Made vivid specifically in sensuous forms, in a capacity that eliminates or leaves out, cutting out anything extraneous to the revelation of the idea. So for example, you can look at this work by Picasso, this famous painting, Guernica, which is a kind of anti-war exploration of, on the part of Picasso, of the Spanish Civil War from the early 20th century. So in this painting, the truth of that historical moment is made vivid, it's made bare in some significant sense, according to this Hegelian theory. But then we might ask, and this is certainly a compelling and complex, really involved image that draws one in, but we might ask, taking a look at this painting. So this is a depiction of the myth from Hesiod of Kronos, Latinized as Saturn, eating his children, right? So Kronos was afraid that his children would come to usurp his power, so he ate them. Here's a depiction of it. Is it beautiful? Is there some truth manifest here? Well, I don't know. It's terrifying. So does art have to be beautiful in the way that it discloses truth? Or is it simply that the content, like in this instance, can be ugly or terrifying, but the presentation of it, like the field of light through which that object is illuminated, remains beautiful despite the ugliness of the concrete material we are presented here to look at. So now, with just a couple minutes left, I want to turn to a PowerPoint, a few slides that I put together in PowerPoint, and I'll be creating a PowerPoint presentation, making it available on our Moodle each week. But I just want to take this time to look at a few of the most famous aesthetic theories. But first of all, what should an aesthetic theory be? Well, here are important elements to it. Well, first of all, a good aesthetic theory should address recognition. So how do we identify a work of art as such and distinguish it from non-works of art? Interpretation, guidance for making sense of a given work and articulating its meaning. Judgment, guidance for evaluating the quality, success, or failure of a given work of art. Integration, lastly, how to understand the role of art in human experience and its relationship to other human endeavors and institutions, which is what I was discussing earlier, such as science, history, religion, etc. Well, here are some of the famous ones. The mimetic theory of art. Here's a quotation from Aristotle. We'll be turning to him in week 3. Mimesis in Greek means imitation. It says poetry is a core part of human nature, and the impulse to write poetry comes from an innate curiosity, a tendency to imitate the things around us. Like this desire to imitate the things around us, the pleasure taken in poetry and works of imitation is a natural response in all men or humans. Again, forgive the sexism. Here's a different one, the formalist theory of art. For this theory, we'll be taking Kant, who is the modern creator of this theory. Bell, in this case, Clive Bell is influenced by Kant. But he says, to appreciate a work of art, we must bring with us nothing from life, no knowledge of its affairs and ideas, no familiarity with its emotions. Art is autonomous from any other thing. And it's really not the content, you might say, of artistic productions, which are significantly aesthetic, but simply the form, which has really nothing to do with the content. Hegel is the thinker I mentioned earlier, who is a proponent of this romantic theory of art. Here is Schelling. God, this is annoying. Who said, consequently, it can only be the contradiction between the conscious and unconscious in free action that sets the artistic impulse into motion, just as, once more, it can only be given to art to satisfy our infinite striving, as well as to resolve the ultimate and most extreme contradiction in us. So for the romantic perspective, here shown by Schelling, but also articulated by Hegel, art is this domain of human spirit in which spirit itself, as the unfolding and history of human consciousness, comes to reconcile itself with material nature. The divide is overcome. The expressionist theory of art will be attacking this approach by way of the Italian philosopher Benedetto Croce from the 20th century. But here is a Russian novelist, Leo Tolstoy, who is also a proponent of expressionism.